Going live. Aha, and we're live. Hello, folks out there. How are you? I just popped on a wee second just to make sure that we've got some green for the sound machine and the picture's okay. Pardon me. Now, I'm not too sure if anybody's going to be out there tonight. I put this up at quite short notice. Just because I was sick last week, I'm afraid I wasn't too good at all. And I was just sorry. I was just before I started. Just popped on here. I was having a wee nosy at some stuff by Lord Raglan's on tradition, and I meant to kind of highlight it and have a wee chat about it, but I might have to do that for next time just to save wasting time and dead air. There's 10 o'clock. I'll say hello, folks. How are you? Happy Christmas to you. It's Christmas Eve. There's Sean Wyland saying good evening, Doc. Merry Christmas to you and your family. Thank you very much, Sean. Same back to you. Pardon me for missing last week, folks. I had hoped to go with the wet. I was very ill. I had to spend half a day in the shower to get my body temperature to one thing. So I do apologise. And just with Christmas dinner and all that stuff, I had a bit of free time tonight. And I thought the work's done. Let's go for it because we've enough chapters of Dune, if you have children of Dune, to get through. And some of which we're going to double up. But my estimate, I think, let me see, just based on my own copy of the book, we've got 64 chapters. So this is chapter 20. So we're pretty much around a third of the way through the book, I would say, which is looking about right, I suppose, in terms of, there we go, amount of paper covered. There we are. So, yes, indeed, if anybody's out there, thanks very much, by the way, for joining me. I would have thought, actually, probably a lot of people might have been doing other things on Christmas Eve. Me not being one of them. Let me just get my paperweights there. So what we've got is an interesting little chapter. So yeah, we've got a couple of wee things maybe to discuss for next time. As I said, I was having a lot just in relation to this chapter and the previous one, really, but the nature of tradition. I thought, particularly with Lord Raglan and the use of Lord Raglan's 22 steps of the ritualistic hero, if you like. I thought it was, and it's a word that I've labelled on top of this chapter. I've still got to find Catrundo, by the way. I'm still looking. But I was having a wee nosy through this, and just basically Lord Raglan talking in relation to the basis of history, if you like, and that tradition creates a couple of different approaches. Pardon me. So tradition is the basis of history, and then he looks at the traditional pedigree in terms of the local tradition, if you like, as well. Pardon me. So what I think for next time, rather than me sitting reading through a lot of dead air and stuff like that, and there's some, how would we put it, language of empire, if you like, in there too. So I think I'm going to do some highlighting with that and hopefully get some of the relevant stuff for you for next time, which might be useful to having a look at some of this. But just again, the book I'm talking about, Lord Raglan's The Hero book, we talk about a lot on here. But it's been a long time since I've always used certain chapters within this, if you like, for my work and stuff. It's been a long time since I've actually read the whole book again. And I'm tearing through the beginning of it there, really. I don't agree with a lot of things that Raglan says, but it is an interesting little thing. But yeah, we might need to do a wee bit of editing, maybe not. No. I'm not a believer in covering up a writer's words to suit a modern audience, if you see what I mean, whatever a modern audience is, a modern readership. I think it's very poor form. So let's have a wee look. Yes, indeed, chapter 20. This is an interesting one. I entitled this one The Doctor of the Beasts and the Green Snail, which is to do with the end of this chapter, really. It's in relation to Stilgar and the sort of people that Muad'Dib has created in his empire, if you like, with Muad'Dib being the Doctor of Beasts. It's an interesting it's another one of Frank Herbert's songs, an interesting little song. Within it, I think we've got some Jungian ideas, if you like. because how do we look into this? What's, in terms of snails and stuff? The snail is a symbol of the self occasionally in Jungian dream interpretation, if you like. So that's an interesting thing. Right, let's jump back to the chapter. Here we go. So I'll just quickly read through the epigraph. It's a nice wee short one. Our 20th epigraph. It says, "You have loved Caladan and lamented its lost host, but pain discovers new lovers cannot erase those forever ghost." As a refrain from the Habanya lament. New lovers cannot erase those forever ghost. It's a very particular refrain, isn't it, from the Habanya lament? Someone who has loved Caladan and lamented its lost host. It has to be specifically somebody from Caladan, and it's most likely probably about Jessica, possibly about Paul, if you like. So this chapter split, and just before we get going with it, we've got two different really points of view, if you like. One is Stilgar observing Ghanima and Jessica, and that's how we're going to start this chapter. Then we're going to get a switch in our point of view and swap over to Ghanima and Jessica, sort of being aware of Stilgar, observing them. And we have a couple of kind of temporal shifts, if you like. One of them was actually, I thought it was a memory, and it turned out not to be. But there we go. So from Stilgar, here we go. Right. And this is following on, of course, from Alia wanting Jessica kidnapped, and that final sort of goodbye with Duncan, Idaho. So Stilgar quadrupled the siege guard around the twins, but he knew it was useless. The lad was his Atreides namesake. Sorry, I'll read that again. Here, hang on, I made a mistake. Yeah, I've left out a word. Sorry. The lad was like his Atreides namesake, the grandfather Leto. There we go. Sorry about that. Everyone who'd known the original Duke remarked upon it. Leto had the measuring look about him, and caution, yes, but all of it had to be evaluated against that latent wildness, the susceptibility to dangerous decisions. The grandfather Leto. So the lad was the Atreides, like his Atreides namesake, the grandfather Leto. I've written next to that. That's not good. As much as how Leto's presented in different ways in the book, he's not a smart guy. Everyone who'd known the original Duke remarked upon it. Leto had the measuring look about him, and caution, yes, but all of it had to be evaluated against that latent wildness, the susceptibility to dangerous decisions. So is that the suggestion there? Is that that's a latent gene of the Atreides that Leto had, Leto the First, this susceptibility to dangerous decisions. Add on top of that, I think, with Leto the Second, the wildness, if you like, of his mother's genes as well. But it's so I think it's interesting the way that's the way it's put. The latent wildness, the susceptibility to dangerous decisions. And if we look back upon Dune then in that way, was Leto the First susceptible to dangerous decisions? Yes, indeed. Dangerous and stupid ones. Ghanima, we're told, Ghanima was more like her mother. That's Chani. There was Chani's red hair, the set of Chani's eyes, and a calculating way about her when she adjusted to difficulties. She often said that she only did what she had to do, but where Leto led, she would follow. So the twins act as one, and Leto was going to lead them into danger. Not once did Stilgar think of taking his problem to Alia. That ruled out Irulan, who ran to Alia with anything and everything. In coming to his decision, Stilgar realized he had accepted the possibility that Leto judged Alia correctly. So not once did it occur to Stilgar, I suppose is the way it's being put here, that he should take this problem to Alia. By proxy, I suppose that rules out Irulan. But the fact that he hasn't done so himself is strongly suggestive, I think, to Stilgar at this point, that there is a reason why I didn't do it, and it's that I don't trust her as well. and that Leto's correct. Here we get Stilgar's thoughts on the matter. She uses people in a casual and callous way, he thought. She even uses Duncan that way. It isn't so much that she'd turn on me and kill me, she'd discard me. And I've written next that, is that worse? Is that she thinks so little of him. Casual, callous, uses people. They're tools. And that's the thing that runs throughout the entire Dune series, if you like, people as tools, Meanwhile, the guard was strengthened and Stilgar stalked his siege like a robed spectre, prying everywhere. All the time his mind seethed with the doubts Leto had planted there. If one could not depend on tradition, then where was the rock upon which to anchor his life? So there's some really nice writing there. There's a lot of alliteration and sibilance and stuff like that. It's a careful little paragraph, isn't it? I quite like it. Strengthened and Stilgar stalked his siege like a robed spectre, prying everywhere. All the time his mind seethed with the doubts Leto had planted there. If one could not depend on tradition, then where was the rock upon which to anchor his life? So this is it. Tradition is Stilgar's rock, if you like, is the rock that he anchors his life upon. And tradition's going to be a very interesting thing within this. As I said, I look forward to reading this. Maybe I'll even find it later on if we get this done and quick enough. It's not a particularly big chapter. Raglan's opinion on tradition. I suppose it depends on your own viewpoint, really. I live in a country where tradition is severely problematic, and is ingrained into both sort of communities, cultures, if you like. And I suppose what becomes something that a tradition is something that you decide to do over and over and over again, repeatedly, to remember the first time you did it or to commemorate the thing. It becomes part and parcel of your life. And the tradition, I suppose, within Fremen life. Yeah. So I think it's an interesting thing that she wouldn't even kill him. That's how little she'd just get rid of him. How little Ali would think of him. See, I suppose the other thing, I suppose, is the security of the siege, isn't it? That this is a safe place. I think might be preying on his mind here as well. This is the bit I thought was a memory, but wasn't actually. So I've written next to this memory, but no. On the afternoon of the convocation of welcome for the Lady Jessica, Stilgar spied Ghanima standing with her grandmother at the entrance lip to the siege's great assembly chamber. It was early, and Alia had not yet arrived, but people already were thronging into the chamber, casting surreptitious glances at the child and adult as they passed. And I suppose that's the other thing within this that we've been getting with Leto and Stilgar. We're going to get again with Alia and Jessica. The idea that these children are not children. They might look like children. They might both look like 9-year-olds, but inside mentally they're beyond measuring in terms of their age, if you like. So these little alcoves, if you like, at the entrance to the siege's great assembly chamber. It was early and Ali had not yet arrived, but people already were thronging into the chamber, casting surreptitious glances at the child and adult as they passed. So Stilgar paused in a shadowed alcove out of the crowd flow and watched the pair of them, unable to hear their words, above the murmuring throb of an assembling multitude. The people of many tribes would be here today to welcome back their old Reverend mother. But she stared at Ghanima. No, I had a wee bit of it. Let me just check this bit here. Against my notes. But she stared at Ghanima. Her eyes, the way they danced when she spoke. The movement fascinated him. Let me just go on with this here. Uh, those deep blue, steady, demanding, measuring eyes. Did I repeat that? Sorry, this I was writing these notes when I wasn't too well, and I might have made a couple of wee mistakes here. Let me just check that. No, I've written the word demanding twice. Apologies. There we go. Let's just get rid of that one. I'll just read that again. Her eyes, the way they danced when she spoke, with an exclamation mark there. The movement fascinated him. Those deep blue, steady, demanding, measuring eyes, and that way of throwing her red gold hair off her shoulders with a twist of the head, that was Chani. It was a ghostly resurrection, an uncanny resemblance. Slowly, Stilgar drew closer and took up his station in another alcove. He could not associate Ghanima's observing manner with any other child of his experience except her brother. Where was Leto? Stilgar glanced back up the crowded passage. His guards would have spread an alarm if anything were amiss. He shook his head. These twins assaulted his sanity. Now, this is a very interesting little bit here. They were a constant abrasion against his peace of mind. He could almost hate them. Kin were not immune from one's hatred, but blood and its precious water carried demands for one's countenance which transcended most other concerns. These twins existed as his greatest responsibility. Now, it's a pretty interesting little section this here, that the twins assault his sanity, are a constant abrasion against his peace of mind, and that he could almost, and the word is almost, hate them. Hatred, a very strong negative emotion. Kin were not immune from one's hatred. But blood found its precious water carried demands for one's countenance which transcended most other concerns. These twins existed as his greatest responsibility. So it's just interesting. We sort of almost they mess with his mind, basically. They play with my head, my peace of mind, my sanity. I almost hate them, but he doesn't. And it's a very in terms of character, it's a very honest, isn't it, appraisal of Ghanima and Leto from Stilgar. Could almost hate them. I think it shows that he's quite a well-drawn character, Stilgar. Pardon me. If you see what I mean, there's a depth here to his insight, I think, which goes beyond some of the characters in the books. But I think it's really good, and that fact that he could almost hate them, and that family aren't immune from hatred, but that they're his greatest responsibility. It's quite sort of contradictory little set of statements, isn't it? And he can't associate their behavior with any other children that he has within his own experience. There's something new. There's Colleges and Cannibals saying tradition is not the worship of ashes, but the preservation of fire by Mallory. Very good. Thank you, Colleges and Cannibals. I said I was having an interesting wee read through Raglan's, just the first couple of chapters on tradition, and I thought I must share this, but not everything in its gold. So I must take a wee highlighter to it for next time. But just in relation to this chapter, yes, indeed, it's not the worship of ashes, but the preservation of fire. But interestingly enough, it's a very good quote, isn't it? Colleges, but you could flip it quite easily, couldn't you? It is the worship of ashes, not the preservation of fire. Certainly here, I don't know. Fire, burning stuff here is a big thing. So and the tradition that goes with it, I suppose, is very, very ancient in some ways, but what it's become. So we have our, I suppose, our public holidays. We would have the 12th of July, but the night before is what we call bonfire night, the 11th night, the 11th of July, and they set they go mad for these big gigantic bonfires, and set fire to them, and it's almost a competition in some of the estates as to who can get the biggest bonfire. I think they're even trying for a world record last time. A lot of them are associated with paramilitary groups as well, and they tend to burn effigies of people on it and stuff like that. Which is a bit of a thing, I suppose. But yeah, the building of the interesting. I think there's an interesting thing with the buildings of the building of the fires here, is that it goes on for months. And that there's great pride and community effort in building these big bonfires. But at the end of the day, all that's left is ashes. It's usually done in public parks and stuff, leaving them in a bit of a state. But it's an interesting thing. Yeah, that's one of the traditions here. And it's mainly a loyalist tradition. I think some of the nationalists have a few bonfires of their own, and it's kind of separate from the more British kind of Guy Fawkes night, which is a little bit later on the 5th of November. Traditions, yeah. What traditions does your country have? And interesting the things that you preserve, and it's quite interesting. Local traditions are quite interesting. Some of them are quite daft, I think. But there you go. Well, thanks very much for joining us, colleges. Happy Christmas to you, by the way. Happy holidays, etc., etc. But yes, it's a good wee point there from Stilgar. I think it's a great little passage just in relation to his character. I think, and I can almost hate these two, and anybody who's raised their own kids or has to look after Wayne's this kind of thing, particularly unruly ones, they can kind of relate to where he's coming from in a way, if you like. Dust-filtered brown light, I can nearly talk tonight, came from the cavernous assembly chamber beyond Ghanima and Jessica. It touched the child's shoulders and the new white robe she wore, backlighting her hair as she turned to peer into the passage at the people thronging past. Why did Leto afflict me with these doubts? He wondered. This is Stilgar again. There was no doubt that it had been done deliberately. None at all. Right. Perhaps Leto wanted me to have a small share of his own mental experience. So is this an attempt, and this is Stilgar's musings on this thing, is this an attempt, by Leto II to provide Stilgar with some form of empathy, or sympathy, at least maybe towards their situation? That's what I was kind of getting from that. But the whole why are they doing this? The Stilgar knows it's being done, and we're going to see the flip side of this with Jessica and Ghanima, I suppose. But he's wondering, and is it for empathy? Is it for sympathy? Especially when, which might be a good thing, especially if we've just had his quite honest thoughts here that he can almost hate these two. And I imagine that Fremen hatred is probably quite a strong thing. It's not mildly annoyed by or peeved by, if you like. Hatred is hatred, isn't it? So Stilgar knew why these twins were different, but had always found his reasoning processes unable to accept what he knew. He had never experienced the womb as prison to an awakened consciousness, a living awareness from the second month of gestation, so it was said. Now, there's a subtle thing by Frank Herbert that's not subtle at all. So we've got rules now for the preborn and the unborn, if you like. Criteria. Well, I don't know how to put it, but prior to with in Dune, I think when we have Alia sort of being awake within the womb, if you like, the mind being aware, we get a little bit of a caveat with this now. So whether this is true or not, I don't know. He had never experienced the womb as a prison to an awakened consciousness. So is this what they're trying to get him to imagine? A living awareness from the second month of gestation, so it was said. So your consciousness for the preborn, in other words, starts in the second month of pregnancy. And it doesn't say if it's at the beginning of the second month or the end of the second month. But we can basically go with, therefore, that the womb as a prison to an awakened consciousness would last for about, that would go on for 7 months, if you like, but it's an interesting little thing. Here's a detail, if you like, that we didn't know before. I thought it was an attempt. It's Stilgar's thinking about this, and I suppose the information could only really come from, Alia or Leto or Ghanima. Hmm. And it's his reasoning processes that are unable to accept what he knew. So he knows this. He knows about them, but he finds it hard to accept. Hmm. And so we have this concept now as well, and we kind of had that idea of the Siege being a bit like a prison for the Fremen. And was that not the previous chapter, but the chapter before, I believe. And now we get this this idea of the womb being a prison to the unborn, to the preborn, which is an interesting concept, isn't it? So there we go. Second month of gestation. Whether it's true or not, we can just put that. We can put that as something we know now about preborn in the womb, if you like. Leaderwood once said that his memory was like an internal holograph, expanding in size and in detail from that original shocked awakening, but never changing shape or outline. So never changing, always, so expanding in size and detail. So that always getting bigger with size, with detail, but from the original shocked awakening, but never changing shape or outline. That's an interesting thing. I wonder what he means by that. For the first time as he watched Ghanima and the Lady Jessica, Stilgar began to understand what it must be like to live in such a scrambled web of memories, unable to retreat or find a sealed room of the mind. Faced with such a condition, one had to integrate madness, to select and reject from a multitude of offerings in a system where answers changed as fast as questions. There could be no fixed tradition. There could be no absolute answers to double-faced questions. What works? That which does not work. He recognized this pattern. It was the old Fremen game of riddles. Question: it brings death and life. Answer: the Coriolis wind. Again, Stilgar's thoughts here. Why did Leto want me to understand this? Stilgar asked. So, he's starting to understand it must be a bit like living in a web of memories. Nowhere safe to go, nowhere safe to retreat. This is what it's like for these. So there are people, aren't there, who have got perfect memory. I'm sure I saw a program about a woman with this type of memory. Well, I don't know, must have been on Channel 4 years ago, but she literally remembers everything. And it's, you think that would be good, but literally every little detail about everything. To the point where the memory, I think, it can be quite debilitating. It can occupy a lot of your time. It's an interesting thing, isn't it? We're just sort of chatting away with my wife about what we do remember, what our memories are positive, what memories are negative, this kind of thing. It's just old memory is a funny thing, and it certainly has a sort of evolutionary job at work, I think. So, forced with such a condition, one had to integrate madness. You got to deal with it. Select and reject this, from the multitude. In a system where answers changed as fast as questions. There could be no fixed tradition. Could be no absolute answers to double-faced questions. What works? That which does not work. So that's paradoxical statement. He reckons, again, it's meant to be a question and answer. That one is a question followed by an answer. And we're told that he recognized this pattern as the old Fremen game of riddles. So we've been talking about the children playing games right from the very beginning of this book. And here we get the question. It brings death and life. Answer the Coriolis wind. Now, in my copy of the book, previous question is a question. What works? Question mark. That is not a question. It's a statement. Let me see. Question, colon, it brings death and life, full stop. Answer the Coriolis wind. So I'm wondering, is that a mistake? It's probably a good place, but yeah, a question has a question mark on it. There we go. Just put a wee circle around that. I made a wee note about it. And I just thought, what's that about? I get that it could be this kind of something a bit Zen or something like that, but I didn't think it. It brings death and life. What's that? The Coriolis wind. The second, yeah. That's it, really, isn't it? The second one's a riddle. The first one's a question. It brings death and life. Yeah, maybe that's it. I think actually it's a riddle. And we just talked about the old Fremen game of riddles. No fixtures, no absolute answers to what works, which does not work is the first question and answer. He recognized this pattern. It was the old Fremen game of riddles. So the first one's part of the riddle game as well. But I figured it should be a question, All right. Now, Stilgar's thoughts here. Why did Leto want me to understand this? Stilgar asked himself. From his cautious probings, Stilgar knew that the twins shared a common view of their difference. They thought of it as an affliction. Pardon me. I always thought affliction was a kind of interesting word. Did I scribble anything down? Maybe not. Pardon me, very quickly. From his cautious probing, Stilgar knew that the twins shared a common view of their difference. They thought of it as affliction. Now, affliction, I think if you look it up, let me see. I didn't write this down. I must have done the work and had a nosy. Now, affliction is something that causes you pain, if I'm not mistaken. Affliction, a cause of pain or harm, a state of being in pain. Pardon me. Astrology, an instance of one celestial body afflicting another. But if we go to the word afflict, let me see. Of a problem or illness, cause pain or trouble to, affect adversely. Astrology of a celestial body. But originally, let's see, from the Latin ad, which is to, and the word filigere, which is to strike or dash. So the word afflict in Latin, originally afflictere, would mean to knock about or harass, and the word afflict means knocked down or weakened. And forward into, as we have here just on the dictionary thing, late Middle English, deject, humiliate. But I always thought that the word affliction tended to have a kind of religious association with it. Possibly divinely inspired, that kind of thing. But I think I might have been wrong. So, they thought of it as an affliction, something that causes pain. And then the next statement here is kind of important. The birth canal would be a draining place to such a one, he thought. Ignorance reduces the shock of some experiences, but they would have no ignorance about birth. What would it be like to live a life where you know all of the things that could go wrong? You would face a constant war with doubts. You would resent your difference from your fellows. Excuse me. It would be pleasant to inflict others with even a taste of that difference. Why me would be your first unanswered question. And what have I been asking myself? Stilgar thought. A wry smile touched his lips. Why me? Now, this is interesting. We've talked about this before. The birth canal. Probably this is the most obvious version of it that we've got from Frank. This birth canal metaphor, and in this case it's a literal birth canal, is a thing that runs through all his early books. And it begins with the dragon in the sea. The submarine, the Fenian ram, kind of has a birth canal, if you like, to pass through before it goes into the sea. So that each time the submarine is launched on a mission, it's kind of a rebirth both for the ship and the submarine, the boat and the crew. So the various things that are, I think there's one, I'm pretty sure there's one in the Green Brain as well. Pardon me, within Dune, then the birth canals are the kind of the sphincters into the Fremen tent. In the desert with Jessica and Paul, that represents a kind of rebirth for them there. There's quite a few, but this is the first time it's here. Frank's going, hey, it's a birth canal. And it's, I suppose it's kind of the part of the process that the heroes go through in some of these stories, if you like, the rebirth, if you like. It's a draining place to such a one. It's an interesting thing. It's just if we're aware of it, you can find it in all of Frank's books up to this point. Or sorry, that might have been wrong. Just going with the first three books at the very least. And here we have it again within Children of Dune, and we have it in Dune Messiah. So it's this rebirth motif, if you like, but particularly a birthing canal. And I must dig out the other one as well. Sometimes actually just read it to you from The Dragon in the Sea. Must have a wee nosy at it. It's pity I don't have a. Yeah, I'll see if I can do that. We mention it a lot. And in this case, it's Stilgar musing about what the birth canal must be like to these kids. You know, it would be a draining place to such a one. And I think it's a kind of almost a bit of a pun on the word draining there, isn't it? Now, I've written down here, by the way, let me just see. I think we have another problem with the text here. Let me see. Yeah, the birth canal would be a draining place to such a one, he thought. Right. And then the birth canal would be a draining place to such a one. His thoughts here are in italics. He thought, full stop. And then on we go. Ignorance reduces the shock of some experience, but they would have no ignorance about birth. What would it be like to live a life where you knew all the things that could go wrong? You would face a constant war with doubts. You would reset your difference from your fellows. It would be pleasant to inflict others with even a taste of what that difference. Why me would be your first unanswered question. And what have I been asking myself? Stilgar thought. So all of that, from the birth canal would be a draining place to such a one, comma, he thought, right, full stop. From there on, from the word ignorance reduces to first unanswered question, all of that's not in italics within my book, but that's still Stilgar's thought process. And it carries on into the next little two-line paragraph. And what have I been asking myself? Stilgar thought. A wry smile touched his lips. Why me? So I just personally think that still being his thoughts there, rather than any narrator. Pardon me, rather than the third person omniscient narrator, that's Stilgar's thoughts, and the thought runs nicely into the next paragraph. So I think that should be in italics, from the word ignorance down to unanswered question. But yeah, that's what have I been asking myself? What would it be like? Just run through his questions here. Um, Ignorance reduces the shock of some experiences, but they would have no ignorance about birth. What would it be like to live a life where you knew all the things that could go wrong? You would face a constant war with doubts. You would resent your difference from your fellows. It would be pleasant to inflict others with even a taste of that difference. Empathy. Um, why me would be your first unanswered question. And what have I been asking myself? Still, I thought I very rarely touched this, but why me? So it's as much as why Leto and Ghanima might be asking why me when it comes to why were we pre-born? Why do we have to hang around in the birthing canal for 7 months? Woe is me, etc., etc. Stilgar's little bit of self pity is also kind of going in the same direction. Why me? Why do I have to put up with these kids? I almost hate them. Um, why is it my responsibility? This kind of thing. They have a good. They do my nutting basically is what Stilgar is saying previously. They get on my. They cause problems to my sanity. Why me? Why is this my problem? I think it's interesting. There we go. Birth canal. I've just written at the bottom. See the dragon in the sea. Pardon me, and Dune. If anybody's ever familiar with what is it? The Dragon in the Sea, the old Jerry Anderson puppet show. What am I thinking on Stingray? The launch of Stingray, that whole thing, if you like, and it's got the birthing canal, if you want. If that's kind of how the Fenian Ram launches in the Dragon in the Sea. But I should add, in case anyone's not too sure, the book that we're talking about is The Dragon in the Sea by Frank Herbert. It's his first novel, one of his best, I think, but it's got other names. So it's also known as Under Pressure. And it's also known as 21st Century Sub. There you go. I don't know about that. I think it's a bit like Tiger being, the star's my destination. Some books have an initial title, don't they? And then there's a problem with the publisher or something, and then it's got a different title. There's an author, the author that bugs me most about, who's a modern author, would be Alistair Reynolds. A couple of his books brought out, repackaged, reprinted, different title, same book. So I've actually bought one of his books. Yeah, possibly two. Is it that I thought, oh, here's the new book from Alistair Reynolds. I haven't got this, and it turned out I had it. It's just they've changed the title. Is it the Prefects one? I think, isn't it? But I managed to catch that. I think. Where is he? Oh, I might be wrong. Actually, it might be the Prefect. Yeah, has that got another title? Let me just check that one before I say the wrong thing. Just quickly. Yeah. Son of a bitch, excuse my French. So I have a copy in hardback of Alistair Reynolds' novel called The Prefect, but it has a different title here. If you look it up on Wikipedia, you'll see it's called Aurora Rising. And so I have both of those books, and I don't need to have both of them. I was not happy about that. Yeah. But in all fairness, I think I bought the book in Amsterdam, which is The Prefect and Aurora, same book. So always reading stuff on the back. So here we go. A lot of this is the new way, by the way, within this book, isn't it? At the minute, the new Fremen, the new Arrakis, new Aliat, new Stilgar, seeing the twins in this new way. He understood the dangerous chances they took with their uncompleted bodies. Ghanima had put it to him succinctly once after he berated her for climbing the precipitous west face of the rim above Sietch Tabr. Why should I fear death? I've been there before, many times. And that's Ghanima speaking there. Stilgar's thoughts here. How can I presume to teach such children? Stilgar wondered. How can anyone presume? And that's the point. These thoughts are now where we shift, if you like, our point of view. And we go over to Jessica and Ghanima. But a lot of what's happening is kind of mirroring, if you like, so what's been going on. And we're told, oddly, Jessica's thoughts were moving in a similar vein as she talked to her granddaughter. She'd been thinking how difficult it must be to carry mature minds in immature bodies. The body would have to learn what the mind already knew it could do, aligning responses and reflexes. The old Bene Gesserit Prana Bindu regimen would be available to them, but even there the mind would run where the flesh could not. Gurney had a supremely difficult task carrying out her orders. And I've just put question mark, which are question mark. I'm not too sure at this point. So just in my own head, I must get a reminder there what's going on. Stilgar is watching us from an alcove back there, Ghanima said. Oh, sorry, very quickly, just before going on, what I got from that was that the twins could have access to the Bene Gesserit Prana Bindu, all the training of fiber and nerve and all of this kind of stuff and muscle, but their bodies, their minds would be planning stuff, that their bodies wouldn't be able to carry out, if you see what I mean, that their physicality wouldn't be able to keep up with it. The mind would run where the flesh could not. I think it's that bit. Yeah. There's a great Judge Dredd story, and it's that kind of thing, and it's about this guy who's really stupid, called Benny Bean. I think it's in a Judge Dredd Christmas annual or something like that from the early 80s. Benny Bean story. Basically, it's 2000 AD Judge Dredd's version of Flowers for Algernon. And it's very, very funny. But this guy pays to get these kind of this treatment to make him smarter day by day, and he becomes a genius, and he's got the body to go with it, and all the ladies love him, and his life's working out. It cuts to a kind of normal incident during the day, and there's an out of control robo truck. And he goes, "I'm a genius. I can help people. People are going to get hurt." And he runs the whole calculation in his brain. How can I possibly stop this? And just before it hits him, he calculates that he's got a 99% chance of not being able to stop it. This runaway robo truck, and it runs him over. I suppose it's kind of his mind writing, checks that his body can't cash this kind of thing. But I get very much the sense that that's what Jessica's thinking here. I do think that what is the whole point of these questions is to get Jessica, Stilgar as well, and Duncan to not think of these children as children. I think that is the ultimate goal here. At the same time, to reinforce trust and alliances, if you like. And I suppose the use of Jessica's character in this, since she's arrived, is the thing that we get to do within this book, is we get to see all the old alliances that the different interactions between the characters that we were so sure of, that we're not sure of them at all in this book. And I suppose Jessica, having been away for a whole book, her coming back here through her point of view allows us to kind of see what's going on, see her fears, and kind of see, I suppose, also through Stilgar, how the twins are kind of patching things with them. They're reinforcing their family bonds, especially when Ali has gone full Harkonnen, if you like. Pardon me. But yeah, Stilgar is watching us from an alcove back there, Ghanima said. Jessica did not turn, but she found herself confounded by what she heard in Ghanima's voice. Ghanima loved the old Fremen as one would love a parent. Even when she spoke lightly of him and teased him, she loved him. The realization forced Jessica to see the old Naib in a new light, understanding in a Gestalten revelation what the twins and Stilgar shared. The new Arrakis did not fit Stilgar well, Jessica realized, no more than this new universe fitted her grandchildren. Pardon me. Unwanted and undemanded, a Bene Gesserit saying flowed through Jessica's mind. To suspect your own mortality is to know the beginning of terror. To learn irrefutably that you are mortal is to know the end of terror. I've written next that. No. It's as simple as that. To suspect your own mortality is to know the beginning of terror, quite possibly. But to learn irrefutably that you're mortal is to know the end of terror. Nonsense. Absolute nonsense. So we'll not put this one on Frank. It's a Bene Gesserit saying, if you like, but it's something I certainly don't agree with. To learn irrefutably that you're immortal is to know the end of terror. Nope, not at all. And if you thought you did know the end of terror, then terror will bring you something new. I think that's the way I look at it. But it's one of those statements that I just like to draw a line under. I think it's a hard no for me. Yes, death would not be a hard yoke to wear, but life was a slow fire to Stilgar and the twins. And I was wondering, whose death is she talking about here? Is this her own death here? Or is it the twins' death? The fact that they've experienced their own death so many times. Life was a slow fire to Stilgar and the twins. It's an interesting way of putting it, isn't it? Each found an ill-fitting world and longed for other ways where variations might be known without threat. They were children of Abraham, learning more from a hawk stooping over the desert than from any book yet written. Excuse me a second, folks. I'm just going to quickly blow my nose. I'll just mute the mic. There we go. Sorry about that. Oh dear. I think it's some of the stuff here is pretty interesting. The idea that the world of Arrakis no longer fits Stilgar, a native of Arrakis, which is one of its leaders. A Fremen true and true doesn't seem to fit with this new world, in the same way that this new universe that they've created, this new Imperium of Muad'Dib, doesn't seem to fit her grandchildren either. Unwanted and undemanded. A Bene Gesserit saying flowed through Jessica's mind. But I think it's a very interesting statement, that unwanted and undemanded. You could apply that to Stilgar here. You could apply that to Jessica here. You could apply that to the twins here. Unwanted and undemanded certainly by Alia, I think. So children of Abraham. I was wondering why not children of Adam, I suppose, but that would genetically sort of speak to all of mankind, if you like, within the mythology of Dune. But children of Abraham, let's have a wee look. So they were children of Abraham, learning more from a hawk stooping over the desert than from any book yet written. I suppose because the basically with Abraham, if you like, the patriarch of Judaism, Christianity, Islam, Baha'i faith, Druze, etc. Would be illiterate, wouldn't he? There's no Bible at that point, this kind of thing. What you learn from people like that is the skills of the land. You learn more from a hawk stooping over the desert than from any book yet written. Just like these kids, that's the analogy here. And Stilgar, by the way, children of Abraham learning more from a hawk stooping over the desert than from any book yet written. Stilgar is the hawk, I think, here. So I had a wee quick check about this. I thought, just running with it. Children of Abraham, just to get it in my own head, patriarch of Judaism, Christianity, Islam. So I had a wee look at the genealogy of Abraham, and the book of the land, I suppose. What was I thinking about? Oh, why? Why again? Just in relation to children of Abraham, I'll get back to it. So let me see. Abraham and Sarah. So Abraham is the patriarch of the Israelites through Isaac. So Abraham and Sarah have Isaac, and through Isaac, Abraham is the patriarch of the Israelites, if I'm not mistaken. Isaac has Esau, and then so Isaac becomes Jacob. Is that right? Isaac has Jacob, who becomes Israel. That's it. That's my brain. Right. Sorry about that. So Abraham begets Isaac, begets Jacob and Esau. From Esau, you get the Edomites. From Jacob, you get the 12 tribes of Israel through his 12 sons and one daughter. He has 6 more. Oh, right. Okay. And then Abraham and Hagar is the patriarch of the Arabs through Ishmael, who has 12 sons and one daughter. Those 12 sons become the 12 tribes of the Ishmaelites. And then Abraham has another 6 children with Keturah. I think this is after Sarah passes. And they are Zimran, Jokshan, Midian, Ishbak, and Shua, if I got it right. Now, I wrote C Wiki, Abraham being Abram. Goodness, what was I having about post-exile literary? So, yeah, I suppose in relation to the Persian period and all of that stuff, what's it all about, really? What are the stories? Land, really. Genealogy and land in relation to Abraham, I think. But, sorry, it's just me having a wee quick nosy at this stuff. But in that sense, I suppose, in relation to being children of Abraham, learning everything learned from the hawk, the things that are kind of maybe important for these children are the land itself and genes, if you like. It's kind of what made me think about it. There's a Joseph Smith saying, well, Heidi, Joseph, how you doing? Happy Christmas to you. I hope you're doing well. Keeping well, sorry. I'm all over the place tonight. Thanks very much for joining us. Again, guys, if you've got any wee questions or anything, fire away. Now, Leto had confounded Jessica only that morning, so we got a time shift here, a memory, as they stood beside the quannet which flowed below the siege. He said, "Water traps us, grandmother. We'd be better off living like dust, because then the wind could carry us higher than the highest cliffs of the shield wall." And as I was scribbling this, I've written next to this, what's this about then? Okay. And although she was familiar with such devious maturity from the mouths of these children, Jessica had been caught by this utterance, but had managed, "Your father might have said that." And Leto, throwing a handful of sand into the air to watch it fall. "Yes, he might have, but my father did not consider, then how quickly water makes everything fall back to the ground from which it came." So water traps us. We'd be better off being like dust, because the wind can carry us higher than the highest cliffs. Your father might have said something like that. Yeah, he might have. But my father did not consider then how quickly water makes everything fall back to the ground from which it came. Now, and so that's the memory from the morning. And then we're going back to the now here with Ghanima. Now standing beside Ghanima in the siege, Jessica felt the shock of those words anew. She turned, glanced back at the still flowing throng, let her gaze wander across Stilgar's shadowy shape in the alcove. Some good sibilance and alliteration there again. Stilgar was no tame Fremen, trained only to carry twigs to the nest. Pardon me, I'll read that again. Stilgar was no tame Fremen, trained only to carry twigs to the nest. He was still a hawk. When he thought of the color red, he did not think of flowers, but blood. So I've just written, he's a hawk, he's a deadly predator. when he thinks of the color red, it's not poppies and things like that or red roses. It's blood, death, doom, destruction, that kind of thing. Um, Hawks prefer hunting just before nightfall and dusk. And I actually, I've also written next to that when he thinks of the color red, he doesn't think of flowers, he thinks of blood. But I've written down next that that's not that odd, is it? Really? What do you most associate with the color red? You're bound to get a bunch of people saying blood, that kind of thing. Joseph Smith saying, "Did you watch the Dune Prophecy series?" I did. Whoa, woo! That was awesome. I have seen it. I watched Joseph. I caught the last episode last night. Actually, well, last night probably means 7 in the morning. The day before, yeah. um, I'll have a wee natter about it. I suppose I'll collect my thoughts, but I thought it was severely problematic. In a number of things. But the one thing that's I don't know what you think about this, Joseph. I liked some things in it, some things I didn't like, but I thought they're trying to put all the pieces on the table. I feel like way too early and some things like that. But it's something that Cara Kennedy's work pointed out, and I've always said I must check that because to check what she said, I would have to get through all the Dune books, and it's something that I'm looking for. But just the basis of the show, Dune Prophecy, meant to be Dune the Sisterhood, etc. The thing that Cara Kennedy pointed out in her research is that the Bene Gesserit don't kill anyone in the Dune series, and you've got an awful lot of Bene Gesserit killing Bene Gesserit. I kind of have a problem with that. But I thought when Emily Watson used the voice there, the kind of Emily Watson fight, if you like, I thought was quite cool. But I thought, yeah, not too smart either, you know. But yeah, I'm not too sure what to think of it. It's hard for me to kind of put anything to do with Frank Herbert's name on it, if you know what I mean. It's someone's taken the trappings of the world, But saying that, it wasn't. I'll put it this way: it wasn't as difficult. It wasn't that difficult to watch, and it wasn't. It wasn't as hard to watch as The Rings of Power. I managed to get through both seasons of that. That was bloody awful. That was terrible. Um, I really had to force myself to watch that. So no, I thought it wasn't too bad. Um, there, some of the stuff and it's okay. Some of the acting and it's a bit bad as well. But not every, but some of the actors are pretty good. But even the Gom Jabbar thing, I had a bit of a problem with as well. Um, it is indeed. Just the beginning is a very delicate time for taking care that the balances are correct. Know then that it is the year 1986 and Frank Herbert has passed away. And sometimes I think of the Dune universe, the whole Kwisatz Haderach Frank Herbert thing with as being a bit meta in some ways. It's kind of what runs with the thoughts we had about the Herbert estate, if you like, and how it's looked after Frank's work. I compare it to something like Christopher Tolkien, how he's looked after his father's work, and interestingly enough, there's another one there. Wow, I never thought about that. So if you want to take one of the three big epics of one of the three grand masters, if you want, of sci-fi, fantasy, and gothic, the Dune series is seen as the pinnacle of science fiction, though I wouldn't agree with that anymore. The Lord of the Rings is seen as the pinnacle of fantasy fiction, and the Gormenghast trilogy is seen as the pinnacle of gothic science fiction. It's kind of all three, isn't it? But what the thing that I was thinking about was that actually all three works now have had people mess with the original author's work, and 2 out of 3 of them have done it in a negative way. if you like, the only person that within that group, if you like. So, but there's a fourth Gorman Gas book by Peake's wife, for example. There's what Brian Herbert and Kevin J. Anderson have done to the Dune franchise, if you like, and then there's Christopher Tolkien's work on his father's Lord of the Rings world, if you like, franchise. I wouldn't call it a franchise, but it is, I suppose. It's an interesting thing. Joseph saying this is a vision of what might have been the start of many great Dune themes, but they tell it through the lens of making it a hit TV show. And it's little things. Joseph, Anaril, we did the work on that word, by the way. It's Naluri, isn't it? But Anaril's an anagram of Irulan. The point where if you can't think up of a name for a character, that you have to, you kind of have to make anagrams out of pre-existing ones. That's one of that's up there with the 3PO thing in Dune. Pardon me. But yeah, it wasn't horrific, but I think continues to dilute and pollute Frank's work. Sorry, just get my. There we are. Yeah, so Ghanima, you're so quiet suddenly, Ghanima said. Is something wrong? Jessica shook her head. It's something Leto said this morning, that's all. I've written next this, I hate this means no. It's when characters shake their heads in books. I like an affirmation of what direction they're shaking their head, because it's a cultural thing. Believe it or not, depends on how much you've been out there in the world. But to some countries, shaking your head is a negative, and others that's shaking your head, and it's a positive. So it's just a pet feeble. Jessica shook her head. That means nothing to me. But I'm gonna. I wrote I hate this, but I'm gonna take it as meaning in a negative. Something Leto said this morning, that's all. When you went out to the plantings, what he say? It was the same look which came over Ghanima's. Oh, sorry. Jessica thought of the curious look which came over Leto's face in the morning. It was the same look which came over Ghanima's face right now. He was recalling the time when Gurney came back from the smugglers to the Atreides banner, Jessica said. Oh, yeah, here, I've got that. Then you were talking about Stilgar, Ghanima said. Which I've written next to that is cuts to the chase. Let me just grab me one of my notebooks here, folks. That's the one. So we were recalling the time when Gurney came back from the smugglers to the Atreides banner, Jessica said. So this is June. This is my notebook spoiler. Chapter 43 in June. Now, let me see. Where are we? Oh, bear with me a second. Right, well, chapter 46, and I'm looking for 43, right, back 3. Bear with me a second, just bring this up. 43, there we are, and it's note 39, right, okay. Got it. Bosh, right. Okay, so we'll just run. I've got this and we'll have a wee look at it. So, he was recalling the time when Gurney came back from the smugglers to the Atreides banner, Jessica said. Then you were talking about Stilgar, Ghanima said. Jessica did not question how this insight occurred. The twins appeared capable of reproducing each other's thought trains at will. Pardon me. No. Yes, we were, Jessica said. Stilgar didn't like to hear Gurney calling Paul his duke, but Gurney's presence forced this upon all of Fremen. Gurney kept saying, my duke. Ghanima said, I see, Ghanima said. And of course, Leto observed that he was not yet Stilgar's duke. That's right. You know what he was doing to you, of course, Ghanima said. I'm not sure I do, Jessica admitted. And she found this admission particularly disturbing because it had not occurred to her that Leto was doing anything at all to her. That's great writing. Let me just back up here. So, the bit that we're talking about here, he was recalling the time when Gurney came back from the smugglers to the Atreides banner. So, this is the bit here. Stilgar, this is Gurney Halleck, of whom you've heard me speak, my father's master of arms, one of the sword masters who instructed me, an old friend. He can be trusted in any venture. I hear you are his duke. Paul stared at Stilgar, wondering the reasons why he said just that. His duke. There'd been a strange, subtle intonation in Stilgar's voice, as though he'd rather have said something else. Not like Stilgar, a leader of Fremen, a man who spoke his mind. Gurney's thoughts, my duke, looked anew at Paul. Yes, with Leto dead, the title fell on Paul's shoulders. Pattern of war on Arrakis took new shape in Gurney's mind. My duke. A place dead within him began coming alive. Only part of his awareness focused on Paul's orders. Smugglers Paul orders smugglers disarmed until they can be questioned. Oh, I think I must have been making slightly about different types of those men returned to command here. Some of his men protesting. Three men death. This is the rightful Duke of Arrakis. Do as he commands. Gambling smuggler. Right, there we go. So it's the problem there. That he's his duke. And that just Stilgar would have preferred to use a different term. And Stilgar's not direct about it, I suppose, is the little bit that we get from that. So that's all the way back to Dune. So, as Leto observed that he was not yet Stilgar's duke. That's right. You know what he was doing to you. Of course, Ghanima said, I'm not sure I do. Jessica admitted, and she doesn't like this one bit. She found this admission particularly disturbing because it not occurred to her that Leto was doing anything at all to her. Now, I think that I've written next to that, is he that good? Or was she oblivious? Or why? Why did it not occur to her? Because it does seem to have occurred to Stilgar. I suppose it is interesting to compare and contrast Jessica and Stilgar in this chapter. Just how they're dealing with these children, how with the threat that's here, with the changes in life, etc., etc. He was trying to ignite your memories of our father, Paul. Oh, sorry, that's me. That's my word. He was trying to ignite your memories of our father. That's Paul. Ghanima said, Leto's always hungry to know our father from the viewpoints of others who knew him. And I just thought that was interesting, just the word hunger, especially whenever we look at things like appetite, hunger, consumption of food and drink, etc. It's a trait generally attributed of the Harkonnens of the Baron, isn't it? But Leto was always hungry to know our father from the viewpoints of others who knew him. But doesn't Leto have... Oh, we can listen to the inner life, certainly, but that's not the same. You spoke about him, of course. You spoke about him, of course. Our father, I mean. You spoke of him as your son. Yes. Jessica clipped it off. She did not like the feeling that these twins could turn her on and off at will, open her memories for observation, touch any emotion which attracted their interest. Ghanima might be doing that right now. Actually, so I've drawn a little on-off button with Jessica here, and I've written next to that, is she? Is Ghanima doing it right now? It's an interesting thing, actually. I've been teaching one of my students just in English, just some stuff for English, classical rhetoric and persuasive argument and dialectic argument and stuff like this. And we're sort of giving him some examples of how historically I've been able to get people, how I would talk to people and get them to do exactly what I want. So I often say that the art of rhetoric is the art of persuasion, but that in itself is a bit of rhetoric. It's the art of manipulation. And generally, yeah, it's a very, very subtle thing, I think. And generally, if not that I use my powers for good, as I like to say, but generally it isn't that difficult to manipulate people to get them to do stuff. Um, hmm. Oh, because the man says it's a lot easier to get flies with honey than vinegar. Hmm. But Ghanima might be doing that right now with a big exclamation mark. And my question is she? Quite possibly. Leto said something to disturb you, Ghanima said, and Jessica found herself shocked at the necessity to suppress anger. So she's been shocked before here, but this time anger. And I've written next to that, compare that to Stilgar's almost hatred, if you like. Pardon me. So Leto said something to disturb you, Ghanima said, yes, he did. You don't like the fact that he knows our father as our mother knew him, and knows our mother as our father knew her, Ghanima said. You don't like what that implies, what we may know about you. I've written next to that, the aristocrats, just having a bit of a giggle. Thinking about, the joke. But yes, indeed. Goodness, something, folks. I was thinking, as much as we go on about people wanting to write papers and stuff like that on the Dune books and do some academic work. By far, I think if if you wanted to have a go at a PhD on the Dune series, the psychotic family novel is absolutely up there to be explored. So this is the sexual implication of other memory and what it really kind of means. So you've got two 9-year-olds essentially with a personality of their parents, each within their heads, that they can then interrogate mum about dad, dad about mum, and have those memories, have the memories of Paul and how he sees Chani, have the memories of Chani and how how she sees Paul, and then you've even got the memories of how they see themselves, I suppose. Pardon me. There's Carlos. Hi, Carlos. How you doing? Happy Christmas to you. Carlos is saying, I would have described the Baron as lusting, not hungering. But there's a bunch of food sort of, isn't it? Food metaphors with him, but it's kind of like it's not that he's eating, it's more like he's he gets hungry at the end of chapters, doesn't he? There's action, food, but there's that thing with the Atreides, with the artillery. There was something to do with that there as well. But he's lusty and hungering. But now he's just a mildly obese heterosexual male now, isn't he, Carlos? Makes me think of it still makes me think on the Blackadder joke about Oscar Wilde. I know when they're talking about Oscar Wilde in the trenches, and the way they describe him as the ultimate, the ultimate heterosexual, big bearded butch Oscar, the terror of the ladies, this kind of thing. Joseph saying, a glutton doesn't eat because they're hungry. Gluttony, sins, lust, hunger, lusting. For sure. What would you go with, Joseph? A glutton doesn't eat because they're hungry, it's because they're greedy. Is that it? That's good. You got to be. That's the problem with these deadly sins, isn't it? That once you start discussing them, you find that they tend to reference other ones. How do you discuss this one in isolation? Gluttony. What was it? To be a glutton for punishment. Habitual greed or excess in eating. Gluttony. Is that from French? Excess in eating and drinking. Taking anything to excess. Excess is an interesting word, isn't it? But then isn't that, so gluttony is the deadly sin, but isn't greed? I thought, I don't know, it gets confusing. It's a Christ in some aspects that stuff it gets a wee bit very confusing for me because the Christian deadly sins. One of them is the highest virtue to the Greeks, I suppose. Was it pride is the crown of virtues? I think is what Aristotle called it. That's because it's who they are. Scorpions stings because that's what they do. I got you. I see what you mean. I suppose the food metaphor with power. Must have a wee look at that again sometime, Joseph. Must take it out of a notebook just to see. Because that's the other thing we were saying with the Baron occupying Alia. How would his desires manifest? I certainly thought it would be in a foodie way as well. So, you don't like the fact that he knows our father as our mother knew him and knows our mother as our father knew her, Ghanima said. You don't like what that implies, what we may know about you. So that's intimacy, isn't it? I'd never really thought about it that way before. Jessica said, finding her voice stiff. And I wondered, is that true? Is that one of the reasons maybe that she stayed away? It's the knowledge of sensual things which usually disturbs, Ghanima said. It's your conditioning. You find it extremely difficult to think of us as anything but children. But there's nothing our parents did together in public or in private that we would not know. Pardon me. Now, for a brief instant, Jessica found herself returning to the reaction which had come over her out there beside the Quannet, but now she forced that reaction upon Ghanima. So if she's not really thought about it before, how is she having the same reaction? So I think that's maybe a slight deception there on Jessica's part. Excuse me. Honey. Oh dear, food of the gods. That's the stuff. Pardon me. So it's the sensual things, the intimacy, the private things that these 9-year-olds know. For a brief instant, Jessica found herself returning to the reaction which had come over her out there beside the Quannet, but now she focused that reaction upon Ghanima. He probably spoke of your... I love this bit. Here we go. He probably spoke of your Duke's rotting sensuality, Ghanima said. Sometimes Leto needs a bridle on his mouth. Yes. Oh dear, you could go all sorts of places with this one. And there's an exclamation mark there as well. Rotting sensuality. I don't know. The word rotting, I don't think belongs with sensuality. I don't know. I get that sensual is a bit more refined than that. I think, if you like, rotting is a bit. I don't know. How would you put it? It's well, what's the old joke? The difference between kinky and erotic. Sorry, was it the difference between erotic and kinky is the difference between using a feather and a whole chicken. Oh dear, it's a terrible joke. I wonder who told me that. I learned that a long time ago. Anyway, I think it's a funny phrase. I would have went with rotting sexuality, but it's sensuality, and it kind of, I don't know, one word kind of wrecks the other, if you see what I mean. Rotting would suggest he's a bit but heavily into his sex, um, sensuality. I don't know. It's a picture I find hard to equate with Leto Atreides, that he's a rotting sensualist. It's not how I view him at all. But again, this is his private time with Jessica. Maybe he is a rotting sensualist in the bedroom. I don't know, but sometimes Leto needs a bridle on his mouth, and this is Ghanima saying that, and I laughed at this because which Leto are we talking about? No, I know it's her sister, her brother, um, or is it? Yeah. Now the other thing I've written next, this what have I written? Sometimes Leto needs a bridle on his mouth. As I've written next this, if this isn't what Leto said, then so does she. And is this a rhetorical technique to get Jessica to kind of go there, if you see what I mean? I think it's very funny. Colleges and cannibals saying, off to bed. Thanks for the show, Doc. Merry Christmas to you and yours. All the best. Colleges, have a happy Christmas. And thanks very much for joining us. As always, we'll hopefully be back next week. Chicken on a feather. Dear, oh dear. So, there's a 9-year-old talking to her granny about Granda's rotting sensuality. It should be a little bit shocking. But this is essentially, is that Ghanima saying, is this what Leto said to you earlier today? He probably spoke of your Duke's rotting sensuality. Now we get Jessica's thoughts there. Sorry, I'm going to mute this a wee second here just to have a good cough, folks. Apologies. Sometimes it's good to have a good old. Oh dear. Now, Jessica's thoughts here. Is there nothing these twins cannot profane? Jessica wondered, moving from shock to outrage to revulsion. How dare they speak of her Leto's sensuality? Of course, a man and a woman who loved each other would share the pleasure of their bodies. It was a private and beautiful thing, not to be paraded in casual conversation between a child and an adult. Child and adult, and that's with an exclamation mark. And again, I think this is the goal of the twins, really, to force the, if you like, grandmother here and effectively, I suppose, surrogate grandfather with Stilgar, to not think of them as children. But this will, as it's put here, how dare they? This is profane. Not to be paraded in casual conversation. Your Duke's rotting sensuality. I think, how dare they speak of her Leto's sensuality? And her is, it's possessive there, isn't it? This is her partner. I think it's kind of, it's a weird little thing, isn't it? But the language is a little bit odd. And maybe it's for a reason that rotting sensuality, it does seem like a double-barreled thing to me, that one is much more base and sexual, if you like, than the other. Where sensual, to be engaged with the senses, it seems to be something a bit less vulgar, if you like. It's an odd pairing of words, and the same kind of the odd pairing of these thoughts with the child and the adult. This conversation. It's an interesting little technique, I think, that Frank's using here. Abruptly, Jessica realized that neither Leto nor Ghanima had done this casually. And as Jessica remained silent, Ghanima said, "We've shocked you. I apologize for both of us. Knowing Leto, I know he didn't consider apologizing. Sometimes when he's following a particular scent, he forgets how different we are from you, for instance. And we get Jessica's thoughts here. And that is why you both do this, of course. You're teaching me. And she wondered then, who else are you teaching? Stilgar? Duncan? And so this echoes back to what Stilgar was saying. Why are they showing me this? Our last kind of Stilgar's thoughts just before we left his characters. How can I presume to teach such children? How can anyone presume? And that's what this is all about. And of course, the truth is that that's been inverted. That it's the children that are teaching them here. Yeah, it's a clever little piece of writing. I really like it. And again, she apologizes. There's a difference in the twins. She apologizes. Leto wouldn't bother. He's too busy following a particular scent. If you like, he's focused. And that he forgets how different we are from you, for instance. So, yeah, that's it. That's why they're doing this. There's nothing casual. It's not that they're being vulgar about, my partner, their grandfather. It's... they're not bringing up his rotting sensuality in a casual way. It's very deliberate. Leto tries to see things as you see them, Ghanima said. Memories are not enough. When you try the hardest just then, you must often fail. Jessica sighed. Ghanima touched her grandmother's arm. Your son left many things unsaid, which yet must be said, even to you. Forgive us, but he loved you. Don't you know that? Jessica turned away to hide the tears glistening in her eyes. He knew your fears, Jessica said, just as he knew Stilgar's fears. Dear Still, our father was his hang on a minute. Bear with me a wee second. I made a wee mistake here, I think. Let me just see. Right. Many things which yet must be said even to you. Jessica, he knew your fears, Jessica said, just as he knew Stilgar's fears. Dear Still, our father was his. There's a problem there, folks, isn't it? That's not Jessica talking, is it? I've written now. Jessica, he knew your fears, Jessica said. He knew your Jessica, just as he knew Stilgar's fears. Dear Still, our father was his. Doctor of Beasts, our father. There, that's Ghanima talking. Paul is the Doctor of Beasts here, and Still was more than a green stone. She hummed a tune from which she'd taken these words. The music hurled the lyrics against Jessica's awareness without compromise. So that's not that's a misprint. That's a mistake. He knew your fears. It should be Ghanima. I'm pretty certain. But it's talking about father. The father's Paul. Jessica's father's the Baron Harkonnen. And that's a mistake. Yeah, it's right. Sorry, let me just scribble this down. That's a mistake. That should be Ghanima speaking, not Jessica. Right. No, let me get a just highlight that. Yeah, that's a problem. That's Ghanima talking. That's pretty appalling. Here, I think I've run out of shock and annoyance and any kind of being bothered by these. There you go. There's a character. That's not Jessica speaking at all. And it's kind of an important speech, isn't it? Right. So I wonder if anybody can confirm that with a different copy of the book. He knew your fears, Ghanima said, not Jessica. It says Jessica in my copy. It's wrong. Just as he knew Stilgar's fears, dear Still, our father was his doctor of beasts, and Still was no more than the green snail hidden in its shell. She hummed the tune from which she'd taken these words. The music hurled the lyrics against Jessica's awareness without compromise. Right, hang on. Okay. Right. Okay, that's appalling. Number 48, Ghanima speaking. I said sometimes when we get the mistakes in the books, any book's got most books have X amount of errata over years of publishing. They're fixed, but the sheer amount of errata within the Dune series is ridiculous. It's worthy of comment. It's notable. I think that makes sense. These are the words that I'd use. It's notable and worthy of comment. But where we actually have characters who are not the correct character speaking, we've got names of characters wrong, in particular where they have a single instance in the story. There's some a major character with the wrong names. It's pretty poor. Now we're talking about these books being the pinnacle of science fiction. This is one of the reasons why they're not. Dear oh dear. Here's the Doctor of Beasts thing then. So she hummed the tune from which she'd taken these words. The music hurled the lyrics against Jessica's awareness without compromise. O Doctor of Beasts, to a green snail shell, with its timid miracle hidden awaiting death, you come as a deity. Even snails know that gods obliterate and cures bring pain, that heaven is seen through a door of flame. O Doctor of Beasts, I am the man snail who sees your single eye peering into my shell. Why, Muad'Dib? Why? Ghanima said, unfortunately, our father left many man snails in our universe. And there we go. That's the end of the chapter. Just quickly, the green snail. I was having a wee nosy at this. Doctor of Beasts. I'm going to go with doctor, meaning it's proper meaning there. Doctor means teacher. So, teacher of beasts, if you like. Green snail I got's the emerald green snail is Papastila pulcherima, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, which is endemic to Manus Island in Papua New Guinea. Just having a wee look at that. Sea snail, Pasolinic sympathetic comes tradition. What was that to have a wee look at? So, Doctor of Beasts, let's just have a wee quick look at it. This is Stilgar, by the way. Who is the Doctor of Beasts? Our father was his Doctor of Beasts. So that's Paul, is the Doctor of Beasts. And the man snail here, I suppose, is Stilgar in relation to how Ghanima's explaining it. But, teacher of beasts to a green snail shell with its timid miracle hidden awaiting death, you come as a deity. So you're like a god. Even snails know that gods obliterate, that cures bring pain, and heaven is seen through a door of flame. O Doctor of Beasts, teacher, I am the man snail who sees your single eye. Imagine this big eye just sort of popping down looking at you if you're in a wee snail shell, peering into my shell. Why, Muad'Dib? Why? Is it why do you look? Are you going to obliterate me? Are you? It's an interesting thing. What do you bring to the universe? Why have you done this? What's its purpose? Our father left many man snails in our universe. There are many people like this staring into the whole, I suppose, the religion and being of Muad'Dib. I'm wondering why. And Stilgar wonders why, and I think Jessica wonders why as well. But the other thing really is, I suppose, just quickly before I'll check your comments, folks, is that just from Stilgar's Doctor of Beasts, no more than the green snail hidden in its shell. Someone observing, if you like, wondering what's going on. But yeah, that's an interesting little thing just to have written. I've scribbled that down, but just reading it back to you folks, I realised that that's not just that last little bit's not Jessica talking at all. It's Ghanima. He knew your fears. This is he knew Stilgar's fears. So who knows what the god brings to the little snail's universe, and the little snail can only really ask why. What are you? Why? What are you doing? I think it's an interesting thing. So just looking a few wee things on this. Accordingly, green snails, etc. is wondering is there any kind of symbolism, that kind of thing, and apparently occasionally within Jungian, the Jungian psychology, psychoanalysis, all of that kind of thing, the study of dreams. That the snail is, it says, occasionally seen as a symbol of the self in dreams. Interestingly enough, the snail's shell can represent life after death as well. Where do we get this from? I got from the Dictionary of Symbols and Imagery by Ad de Vries, 1976. So that's where I found that stuff. There's something else here I just want to look up. I've written something down here. I'm not too sure what the hell it means. All right. All right. I'd scribbled this down as well. I've written here just with Wikipedia, see snail, but also wrote down Pacillolinic. Yes, I wrote it down right. Pacillolinic sympathetic compass. If anybody's never heard of this, also known as the snail telegraph, is a device built to test the hypothesis that snails create a permanent telepathic link when they mate. The device was developed by French occultist Jacques Toussaint Benoit de Hero, with supposed assistance of an American colleague, Monsieur Biard Chrétien, in the 1850s. I was having a look into this. It's here. Sympathetic communication, etc. Rosicrucians cutting pieces of their flesh off the arm and transplanting it. If you read that, it's a little bit freaky. It's the Pascal. Hang on, I'll just copy this. Paste it. There you go. If you look that up on Wikipedia, I think that's fun. Interesting mention of the Rosicrucians there. I suppose I said we're heading towards some esoteric stuff with the next book. Pardon me. Carl said it must be very amusing to the preborn to shock people. Ali did the same in June. Yeah, it would be your party trick, wouldn't it? It would be the main thing you would do. Joseph said, don't forget the like and share. Yeah, thank you very much, Joseph. If anybody's wants to feed the machine algorithm, give us a wee like or a subscribe or hit a button or something. We'd appreciate it. Thank you very much. But yeah, there we go, folks. Another wee chapter done. And apologies for not getting on last week. I was very sick, and it all happened kind of last minute, well, suddenly. And I I lost a couple of days of teaching as well. But just had to get the missus to put up a couple of messages for me, and I'm sorry I'm out of action, folks. So I do apologise, but fortunately I had got all of those notes done, and I'm still not 100%, but I thought well enough to have a wee go at this tonight before I start getting the dinner sort for Christmas Day, But there we go, folks. So it's a nice wee short one tonight. We didn't do too bad. It's an interesting little chapter. I suppose really the realization of Stilgar and Jessica, that they are being manipulated a bit, but what's the purpose? What's the whole point of this? You've got to start paying attention to the two of us. We're not 9-year-old children. You need to listen. You need, and it's a good wee chapter. But there you go, folks. Uh, Well, yes, indeed, Joseph, out saying have a great holiday. Yes, I'm going to wrap up now, folks, and I'll probably let you get going. It's coming up to a quarter to midnight on Christmas Eve, so I'm going to go chill with the family and see how they're doing and get the dinner planned for tomorrow. But yeah, we'll see if we can pop on sometime within the next week or so, and hopefully we'll be back in a week's time for another chapter of our Children of June book club. We'll maybe get online between then, Joseph, as was you asking. Have a wee bit of a natter about some science fiction, and have a wee bit of a chat about Dune Prophecy, the show, and a few other wee things that are about at the minute, But there we go. Well, listen, I'll just say this then. Thank you very much, everybody, for joining me tonight. Didn't think anybody would be about on Christmas Eve, to be honest with you. But just say thanks a lot. I hope you all have a nice set of holidays, nice Christmas, and heading towards the new year. And yeah, I hope you have a good holidays and look after yourselves. And I hope you have a nice time. Be safe and jolly. So we'll say all the very best, folks. Happy Christmas. Um, and a happy new year if I don't catch us before then. But I have a strong suspicion you will. So we'll see you all real soon. In the meantime, enjoy your holidays and take care. Thanks very much. All the best. Good night. Bye bye. Do 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 ba 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 da ba da 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 da.